Hello again, everybody. My name is Mike Petralia, joined once again by Mike Dussault of PatsPropaganda.com as we preview the Super Bowl bye week going into Patriots-Eagles Super Bowl 52 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is Patriots Roundtable powered by CLNS Media and Simple Contacts. Before we get started here, take care of some business. I do have to tell you guys about my newest time-saving trick. I got my daughter's contact lens prescription renewed from my office desk just a couple of days ago in under 5 minutes using an awesome new app called Simple Contacts. Simple Contacts lets you renew your prescription and reorder your brand of lenses from anywhere in just minutes through an online vision test. It's designed by doctors, and every test is reviewed by a doctor, so they're literally bringing the doctor's office to your home. Contact lens prices are unbeatable. The vision test is only $20, and shipping is free. Best of all, my listeners get $30 off their first Simple Contacts order with the promo code CLNS. Also, if you have an existing prescription, you can renew that online using the Simple Contacts app. Try it for yourself and save $30 on your lenses by going to simplecontacts.com/CLNS or just enter the code CLNS at checkout. Again, that's simplecontacts.com/CLNS or just enter the code CLNS at checkout. All right, Mike, let's get to the business of previewing Super Bowl 52. We've gotten by the euphoria of the 10-point comeback in the fourth quarter of the AFC Championship, and the Patriots are on to the business of trying to get ready for a Philadelphia Eagles team that, in my estimation, does two things that you absolutely have to do to win playoff football games. They run the ball and they stop the run. They are third in the NFL, or were third in the NFL in the regular season at running the ball at 132 yards per game. They've averaged about 109 yards per game in wins over the Falcons and Vikings. And then they stopped the run, allowing 79.2 yards per game. That is best in the NFL in the regular season. So what sticks out to you about the way first of all, the Eagles run the football?
Sure. Well, I mean, they see a lot of runs out of the shotgun with Jay Ajayi. He's really, I mean, you can see how he really sparks the offense. And, some of those drives, especially one of their best drive against the Falcons, he just once he gets going, it really opens up all of their offense. So I think it's going to be a huge key stopping him. Obviously, with LeGarrette Blount, we've seen plenty of him over the years. I think we kind of know. I was never the biggest Blount fan, just as a player, loved him as a guy, but he can't be allowed to get into the second level. And I think they know they need to get him and hit him early to prevent him from getting through. But he's going to get a lot of those short yardage carries. And those two guys, I think, do most of the damage. The Patriots we saw last week, keying on the run, did a great job. They're just going to need to continue this week.
Well, something the Patriots are certainly going to key on is the right side of the Eagles offensive line. You're talking about a couple of Pro Bowlers in right tackle Lane Johnson and right guard Brandon Brooks. Those two players elected to the Pro Bowl this year. And then you have who I think is one of the best centers in the National Football League, and I'm certainly not alone in this, Jason Kelce. They have an offensive line that I think is the most formidable, certainly that the Patriots will have faced so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, you got to love the toughness that, James Harrison has brought to the Patriots defense. I mean, I think he's just a critical element. I mean, he certainly had some plays in the first half, against the Jags that weren't great. He lost contain a couple times. But, at the end, he was there making plays when it counted. And I think he's the kind of guy that you're really going to need in this game to stop the run. If you're having to rely on Eric Lee, who is still playing, even though they brought in Harrison, they're still giving him plenty of snaps. I think they might be in trouble. So I think he's going to be a key guy. Malcolm Brown was just absolutely dominant against the Jags. So I think that matchup right in the middle of the line against Kelce, going to be a fascinating one to watch.
And the thing about Eric Lee, and I'm sure you've watched enough film to know this, Mike, is that sometimes he over pursues and he gets out of his lane. And when you get out of your lane, commitments and really bad things happen, and you have to contain. If you're, we've heard this time and time again, when you're playing the Patriots Belichick defense, you have to have lane integrity and not get out of them. Because if you do, certainly teams have been able to take advantage of that and run to the outside on the Patriots. That's something we saw a little bit in the Jacksonville game in the first half, but I thought the Patriots did a good job. The other thing, and Doug Kyde of Nesson.com, I thought made a good point to me in the Patriots podcast, my Patriots Beat podcast earlier in the week. He said Trey Flowers does not get enough credit for the good job that he does in run defense integrity.
Yeah, I feel like I feel the exact same way because, you know, in my immediate article that I wrote just after the game, kind of an instant reaction, you know, I totally left Trey Flowers out, and then you go and you kind of watch the film and review it, and it's like, oh my God, Trey Flowers was all over the place. So, you know, those guys, I mean, it's the hallmark of the Patriots defense. They've got a bunch of pieces that they've put together over the years that, you know, aren't the first round picks. And, you know, you see all the talent on the Eagles defensive side of the ball. But like you said, they play within the system. And, you know, when you have all those guys doing their job, I know it's a cliche at this point, but it's certainly effective when you're playing football defense if everybody's doing what their task is and accomplishing it.
You have to give the Eagles a lot of credit for going out and getting Jay Ajayi and making that trade with Miami. What have you seen from the Eagles in terms of their offense that has really been sparked thanks to the addition of Ajayi?
Sure. Well, you know, I mean, it's the same kind of thing we had with Blount here, who's a good player once he gets out in space and, you know, is an effective running back. I mean, what do you have, like, you know, 19 touchdowns last year, which was crazy. I mean, all of them were from basically the 1 yard line. But, you know, he just gives him that early down explosive back who can make something out of nothing. And that's, you know, really what Blount struggles with and was my biggest complaint about Blount when he was here. If it's not there, he's not going to make anything out of it. So Ajayi gives them that ability. You know, he's, you know, a lot, like, I think like a lot of the Eagles, which I kind of felt was a trend. And Evan Lazar pointed this out as well. I saw this morning, you know, they're just very streaky and, you know, they'll get going and they'll rattle off a bunch of runs and a bunch of plays. And even noticing them doing that Patriots thing where they have success with the play and they'll go right back to it and run the same play again. But they're streaky. And, you know, I think that's one thing. If you kind of keep them back and you don't give up those big plays, they're going to, you know, they'll stall out a little bit. But once they get rolling, they're hard to stop.
And, you know, the thing, I'm sure Belichick is going to bring this up in his film review when he, if he hasn't already, is the couple of tackles that Ajayi shedded, you know, throughout the game, throughout the NFC Championship game on Sunday. And that is going to be a point of emphasis for the Patriots defense, I'm sure, going into this game.
Yeah, tackling always critical. I mean, you hear Matt Patricia talk a lot about it. I mean, over the years, it's just it's amazing how much they really stress fundamentals at the end of the season. And, you know, you look at the Super Bowl, the kind of game that it usually is, it just drags out. Those are the first things to go when you get tired. You have an extended halftime. You've got a whole production going on. It's hard for teams. So I think the Eagles have a lot of good pieces, and they're really, you know, despite some potentially catastrophic injuries over the course of the year, they've shown Patriots like, you know, ability to bounce back from those injuries, and they still just have crazy depth all across the board. So, you know, it's going to be key, just keeping them on their heels and not letting them get going. But it's going to happen. They're going to make plays.
All right, other side of the ball, Mike. So much has been made of the Patriots not scoring a first quarter point in the Belichick-Brady Super Bowl era in the Super Bowl. And Belichick was joking with Mike Reese at the press conference earlier in the week. Yeah, we try to score. It's not like we're not trying to score. But obviously, I think against a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, it'd be good to get off to a quick start, not rely on coming back constantly in these big playoff games.
Yeah, I've had such a good time. Usually I spend so much time trying to dissect the Patriots defense. It's been nice the last couple of days to really dive into the Philadelphia defense. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, their front four is 8-man deep, and they'll rotate all four guys out, you know, within the same drive. You just got so many guys who can do so much. I think that the Jags defense was maybe a little bit faster, but this defense is a lot more powerful. And I think generally the Patriots, when they've struggle with power, especially, I mean, you got to start with Fletcher Cox. I mean, that guy is a guy who could single-handedly ruin a game. You look at Justin Tuck and the two Giants Super Bowls. That's the kind of guy that gives them problems. I think that's where the matchup nightmare kind of starts.
Well, and my answer to that is if they can rotate and keep bodies fresh, if you're the Patriots, do you not try to go up tempo more often than you normally would in this game?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, that's a great game plan to, you know, try to go no huddle, keep them from doing that rotation. But, you know, it's a long game, and over the course of the game, having multiple pass rushers that you can roll in that can all get after the quarterback, it's going to be a big task to try to, you know, keep those guys blocked for a full 60 minutes over the course of a Super Bowl, especially when you look at how many defenses really struggle. We look at the Falcons, we look at the Seahawks, these are great defenses, and they ran out of gas. Maybe the Eagles have enough depth to not run out of gas this time.
Well, and to your point, this is where complementary football comes in so huge. If you're the Eagles, you want to run the ball, you want to eat clock, you want to give your defense the most time that is possible on the sideline, not just because you're keeping Tom Brady and the Patriots offense on the sideline, but you want to rest your pass rushers, right? You want to give them as much juice as possible when they're on the field.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, they have guys who can do it all. I mean, you have, 4 edge players who are all real good. You got Derek Barnett, who, first round pick, who, really comes off the bench. And he's one of those guys that, each game I watched as the season progressed, he just seems to keep getting better and better. He's one to keep an eye on. Vinny Curry, he's a big monster out there on the right side. It's interesting because, as somebody who watches a lot of the Patriots defense, to go then to look at this Jim Schwartz defense where, it's not the most complicated defense, but they sure are effective in what they do. And they have the depth across the board to, keep rolling those guys out and being effective.
Bill Belichick called Fletcher Cox this week maybe as good as a nose tackle as there is in the NFL, and that's very high praise indeed. And I don't think he's saying that lightly. I think he really means that based on what you said earlier. He can really destroy what you're trying to do in terms of offensive protections and whatnot. And so the Patriots are going to have to come up with some type of game plan for him. I don't know, given the depth, as you mentioned, of their defensive front, if you can get away with double teaming that much. Do you think they can?
Well, it's tough because, they'll run Chris Long out, from a wide 9, which really, stretches your protection. And it makes it tough to double those guys on the inside because you're having to account for the outside edge rushers as well. So, there's just a lot that they can do. And they're very aggressive. But, I look at Marcel Darius had a pretty good game against Shaq Mason, had a couple sacks, against Mason. And I think that's kind of the matchup. As much as I like Shaq Mason, a super athletic guard, that's what worries me a little bit. Cox on Mason, especially if they isolate him.
Okay, we started off talking about the run defense of the Eagles and how good they've been. The Patriots have been able to run the ball pretty much effectively, I'd say, for the last 7 weeks, the last 4 weeks of the regular season with Dion Lewis, and picked their spots in the playoffs. They didn't really have a huge running game, obviously, against the Jaguars. They were playing from behind, had to throw the ball a lot. Danny Amendola certainly was the star of the game. But in this game, if you're the Patriots, you're Josh McDaniels, how do you get Dion Lewis, Rex Burkhead, and James White going?
Yeah, we've seen, in some of the games I watched, had some success running, usually Brandon Graham's on the left, defensive left side, and they had some success running to that side, getting him pinned in. I would look, it sounds like Gronkowski's going to play. I'm just going to assume he's going to play. So,
yeah, I think that's a fairly safe assumption.
Putting him over there and pinning the edge, I think attacking kind of the edges of the defense, you're not going to want to run up the middle on Fletcher Cox, on Timmy Jernigan, but I think once you get past that initial level, got to mention Malcolm Jenkins. I'm sure we will coming up, but I'm not blown away by their linebackers and their secondary. They're very solid, but I think that if you can get past that first level, there are things that you can attack.
Well, and to your point, I think the Patriots would try their best to get a lot of quick passes over the middle. Again, that's where I think going up tempo could help them. We could certainly see a big game from James White if they're looking to get these pass rushers of the Philadelphia Eagles upfield a little bit more. If you can slip James White in behind them, there could be big gains there.
For sure. I think the screen game, it hasn't been the most effective part of the Patriots attack this season, but, like you said, James White, Dion Lewis, getting them out in space, you see it with these attacking defenses a lot. The Patriots try to use that against them with misdirection, little plays here and there where they try to get their running backs out in space. I think those are the kind of things they're going to have to be creative with.
All right. You talked about the second level of the Eagles defense. What's the best way you think to go about attacking it?
Well, you got to start with Malcolm Jenkins, who I think really plays a similar role that we see from Patrick Chung. He does a little bit of everything. He's going to be in the box a lot. He can cover running backs. He can cover tight ends. He'll cover the slot. He'll blitz. I mean, he's the guy that kind of does it all for them in the secondary. And then after that, you kind of, it's, they're okay. Jalen Mills, one guy, you look at the Giants game, I think he was targeted over 20 games. So we all know Tom Brady likes to find a target and pick on him. I think Jalen Mills could be that guy. Darby that we saw with the Bills for a while, he's they're pretty good. They'll play some man, they'll play cover 3. That was, 2 coverages that I saw most out of them. And they're good. And I think it really revolves around running away from Jenkins and Fletcher Cox. Those are the 2 big keys, and trying to get them with misdirection and not let them get involved in the plays.
All right, that'll wrap it up. This edition of Patriots Roundtable. We'll of course have much more from Mike Dussault, myself, and the whole CLNS media team as we move on to the actual Super Bowl week coming up next week, leading into the game on February 4th in Minneapolis. Yours truly and Mike plan to be in Minneapolis for Super Bowl 52, so we'll have you covered from the game itself, and lots of post-game coverage and analysis, and plenty of analysis leading up to it. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Trags.
You got it. That'll be a wrap for this edition of the Patriots Roundtable. Again, follow us for complete Patriots coverage on clnsmedia.com. This Patriots Roundtable was powered by CLNS Media and Simple Contacts.